The Buffalo Bills must avoid a letdown on Sunday. I'm going to tell you how they can do that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Well, folks, welcome in. It's time to get ready for the Bills' Week 16 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them. So let's dive into it. The Bills on the road in Week 16 to face the Cleveland Browns. The game will be played on Sunday, December 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at Huntington Bank Field in Cleveland, Ohio. You can watch this game on CBS. Ian Eagle is on the play-by-play. J.J. Watt is the game analyst, and Evan Washburn is the sideline reporter. This will be the 24th all-time meeting between the Bills and Browns. Buffalo holds a 13-10 all-time record against Cleveland. And remarkably, the Bills and Browns have not faced each other very often. Since 2017, when Sean McDermott became the head coach of the Bills have only played the Browns twice, which is the fewest amount of games against any AFC opponent. In fact, the Bills have played 7 different NFC teams more than twice over that span, which is kind of crazy. The Bills enter this game 10-4, second placed in the AFC East, and currently the number 6 seed in the AFC. The Browns are 3-11. They're last in the NFC North, and of course have been eliminated from postseason contention. Couple of fun storylines for this game. Obviously, everyone knows about Myles Garrett's pursuit of the NFL single-season sack record. He's got 1.5 of those to go before he sets a new mark. Also, Josh Allen, he is 1 touchdown away from becoming the fastest player ever to 300 career touchdowns, and would be the first to ever do it before turning 30 years old. The head coach of the Cleveland Browns is Kevin Stefanski. It's his 6th season as the Browns head coach, has a 43-55 record in Cleveland. He's a 2-time coach of the year. In fact, the only 2 times the Browns have had a winning record under Kevin Stefanski, he was named coach of the year. And this team has obviously been set back by some catastrophically bad choices at the quarterback position. First of all, moving on from Baker Mayfield, but then trading for Deshaun Watson. It has really hurt this football team. And so they're 3-11 this year. Last year, the Browns were 3-14. Prior to becoming the head coach in Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski's entire career was with the Minnesota Vikings from 2006 through 2019. He was like a positional coach, like assistant quarterbacks, tight ends, running backs, the quarterbacks coach. Then he became the offensive coordinator for 1 year, and then he became the Browns head coach. The quarterback for this team is Shedeur Sanders, and they've been through several quarterbacks this year. It started off as Joe Flacco. Then they pivoted to Dylan Gabriel, who they drafted in the 3rd round of the draft. And now it's Shedeur Sanders, who they picked in the 5th round. So let's talk about Shedeur Sanders, who is 23 years old, 6'2", 212 pounds, was a 5th-round pick, number 144 overall out of Colorado. He's set to make his 5th career start. And in the 4 starts that he's had to this point, the Browns have gone 1-3. They beat the Raiders for their lone win under Shedeur Sanders. So far this year, he's completing 52% of his passes, 225 yards per game passing in his 4 starts, has 5 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, and a passer rating of 68.1. His EPA per dropback is minus 0.38, which is comfortably last in the NFL. Now, I want to give you his metrics, but I only want to give you his metrics for the last 4 weeks. And so the ranks that I give you will be in comparison to the top 32 quarterbacks in terms of dropbacks over the last 4 weeks so that we have good comparisons. Shedeur Sanders has thrown deep, which is 20 yards or more down the field, 12.3% of the time. That's pretty frequent. That's 9th highest in the NFL, and he's had some level of success, 7 of 18 for 274 yards with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Yards after catch is a big part of the formula. 63% of his yards have come after the catch, which is 4th highest in the league. He does not throw to his first read very often, only 54%. That is 30th in the NFL. And as you might expect, he holds onto the ball forever. 3.17 seconds is his average time to throw, dead last in the NFL. He has not been accurate. A catchable ball rate of only 68%. That's 29th in the NFL. He's throwing turnover-worthy throws on 6.6% of attempts. That's 3rd highest in the NFL. He's pressured a ton, 50% of dropbacks. He's pressured. That's 3rd highest. He executes play action only 21% of the time. That's 30th. Plenty of screens, though, 15% screen rate, 5th highest in the NFL. And so Shedeur Sanders obviously has been a polarizing quarterback. His entire draft process, some belief that he could be a high first-round pick. And then his draft process was very unusual. He didn't take a lot of team meetings. He didn't really do a lot in the draft process, right? He didn't participate in the Shrine Game despite showing up to it, and was, very unique in how he approached it, and winds up falling to the 5th round, the second quarterback that the Browns selected, and he's come in, and he certainly had his moments. There's no question about it. There's been some high-level flashes, but there's been a lot of inconsistency, which in defense of Shedeur Sanders is probably to be expected. This guy was part of a training camp and offseason that included 3 other quarterbacks. In camp, they had Joe Flacco, they had Kenny Pickett, they had Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. And this guy didn't take first-team reps until about a month ago. And so based on the overall context of the situation, it's not a very ripe opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to come in and play his best football and really showcase who he is. And so from the Browns side of things, I think it's about moments, right? Seeing some high-level moments, seeing some big-time throws, seeing him manage some situations effectively, despite the overall story not being a very good one, but being mindful of the context that is not going to support any quarterback stepping in and playing at a high level, much less a 5th-round rookie under these circumstances. So that's Shedeur Sanders. We'll talk more about the offensive coordinator and this Browns offense here on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. You lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks is going to add that extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule for you. You can create a lineup in less than a minute, and the app makes the entire process smooth and intuitive. And I love that you can choose from a unique range of stats, including fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever is going to fit your strategy. And the early payout feature is awesome. When your lineup starts strong, you're going to get that opportunity potentially to cash out early. And of course, all the deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, folks, this Cleveland Browns offense is coordinated by Tommy Rees, 33 years old. He was their passing game coordinator last year. He's now their offensive coordinator. And Kevin Stefanski gave him play calling duties in early November. So he is their play caller, despite Kevin Stefanski being that offensive-minded head coach. Prior to being their passing game coordinator last year, he was Alabama's offensive coordinator in 2023. He was Notre Dame's offensive coordinator from 2020 up until he left for Alabama. And then prior to that, he had 3 seasons as Notre Dame's quarterbacks coach. So he's had quite the glow up here very quickly, becoming an NFL offensive coordinator and play caller. Metrically, it's not been a great year for this Browns offense. They're only scoring 16 points per game. That's 29th in the league. It's kind of crazy that 16 points per game is not the worst, right? You got some offenses out there that are struggling. They pass the ball 61% of the time. That's 5th highest. They run the ball 39% of the time, which is 28th. They're 32nd in EPA per play on offense. They're 32nd in EPA per pass. They're 31st in EPA per rush. They only convert 32% of their third downs, which is 30th. They convert a touchdown 56% of the time they get to the red zone, which is 21st. Let's talk about their personnel. Now, wide receiver, their top guy is Jerry Jeudy, former first-round pick of the Broncos. He had 1,200 receiving yards last year. The production hasn't quite been there this year. He's a good route runner. He can separate. He's been kind of up and down in terms of ball skills and catching the football with consistency, but he's a good NFL receiver that is a good route runner that has produced in the league. Isaiah Bond is become a part of this offense. Undrafted player out of Texas, had a very troubling draft process, but he's extremely fast. He's one of those 4-3 guys that's starting to get some opportunity in this offense. And then Cedric Tillman's like their big-bodied possession receiver type player. So that's going to be their guys at receiver, Jeudy, Bond, and Cedric Tillman. Now, tight end is a huge part of this offense, and they got a really good young one, and Harold Fannin. They drafted him on day 2 out of Bowling Green. He's not a huge tight end, but he's a guy that they can move around and get a lot of dynamic upside with his playmaking skills at the tight end position, whether that's giving him the ball quickly and allowing him to create after the catch. He's very good in that capacity, but also a guy that can win down the field. He's got athleticism. He's got ball skills. He's a guy that can make some things happen. He's having a really, really good rookie season. There's been some really good rookie tight ends this year, and Harold Fannin has been very, very impressive. They also have David Njoku. Not sure if he's going to be able to go or not. He's been battling an injury. Certainly a very accomplished tight end, athleticism for days with him, and so we'll see if he's able to go. But it's really become, even with a healthy Njoku, it's been Harold Fannin's the guy here at tight end. At running back, they've got a good young running back in Quinshon Junkins. They drafted him on day 2 out of Ohio State. I thought yesterday on the crossover episode, Spencer German did a good job of comparing him to Kareem Hunt. Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Probably a little bit more juice and athleticism right now than what Kareem Hunt is offering. But I think he's a good young running back that'll be a good player for a long time. I don't think this infrastructure has given him the greatest opportunity to really showcase himself, but he's got a really nice skill set. He's got good size. He's physical. He's got some burst to him. He's a good runner and a good test for the Bills to be able to handle. His running mates, we'll see. They drafted another running back early in the draft, Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, who gives them a lot of speed. He's banged up, not sure if he's able to go. And so last week, the running mate was Travion Williams, who's been like a depth running back that's been bouncing around through the last few years. But it's really about Quinshon Junkins. In fact, when you look at the total carries for Cleveland this year, Quinshon Junkins has 222 carries. The next highest on the team is Dylan Sampson with 44. So they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball with Quinshon Junkins. When it comes to target distribution, and I want to really break this down to just the last 4 games, because those are the 4 games that Shedeur Sanders has played. And so this will really kind of give you an idea of the distribution of the football in this passing game. The number 1 target getter is Harold Fannin, the tight end, with 35. The next closest is Jerry Jeudy with 16, right? So to give you an idea of where the football is going to, it's Harold Fannin, and then they get the ball to Jerry Jeudy. Then it's Quinshon Junkins with 10 targets over the last 4 games. Isaiah Bond has 10 targets. Gage Larvardian, who's an undrafted free agent out of South Carolina, he's got 8 targets. Dylan Sampson, 8 targets. Cedric Tillman, 7. David Njoku, 3. So Fannin, Jeudy, Junkins, Bond, right? That's where the ball's going in this offense. Now let's talk about this offensive line. I'm going to do the best I can here because they have so many injuries to this offensive line. So we're not exactly sure who's going to go. So we'll try to navigate this conversation the best we can. At left tackle, it'll be Cam Robinson. He's been a starter in the league for a while. I think he's been a replacement level player. He's a guy that I think has struggled throughout his career. I think he's having his worst season, and I think the Bills should be able to affect this football game by winning one-on-one matchups against Cam Robinson. At left guard, they have Joel Bitonio, who's been a good starter for a long time in the league. We'll see if he can go. He didn't practice on Wednesday. I think he's probably their most consistent offensive lineman right now, and obviously a guy that has seen better days in the league. But again, like aging veteran, is he really primed to play his best football under these circumstances with, moving parts all over the place? Probably not, but he's a good left guard if he can go. Their center is Luke Weipler. That's not their preferred starter. Ethan Pochik is their preferred starter. He's out for the year. So now Luke Weipler's coming in, was out of Ohio State a few years ago, late pick. That's really getting his first real extensive opportunity to play. At right guard, we'll see who it is. Wyatt Teller would be their preferred choice. He missed last week. We'll see maybe he's going to go this week. I think he was limited on Wednesday. We'll see if he can go. I don't think he's a top-end elite guard, but he's a sufficient level starter. And so between Bitonio maybe not going, Teller not going, Zach Zinter might play, who was a draft pick out of Michigan a few years ago. Garrett Dellinger handled the right guard duties last year, who was a 7th-round draft pick by the Ravens this year out of LSU, and now he's starting games for the Browns. So it's kind of a mess. But I think between Bitonio, Teller, Zinter, and Dellinger, 2 of those guys are going to start at guard for this team. Then their right tackle, again, not a preferred starter. Jack Conklin would be their preferred starting right tackle. They're down to KT Leviston, who was a 2024 undrafted free agent by the Rams out of Kansas State, who's actually been playing a good bit lately and kind of performed well. And so that could be like a nice little find that they have. But I do have high expectations for the Bills against him, given his pedigree and inexperience. So they got a world of issues with offensive line health. I didn't even mention like DeJuan Jones, who's injured. There's so many players that are just not available to them. So they're piecing it together, and that's tough. So what are my keys for the Bills defense against this offense? Number 1, stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. I mean, not only because the Bills need to be better at stopping the run, but let's be honest about the game that Cleveland wants to play. They want to invite Buffalo to a game where they control the clock. They run the football. They keep Josh Allen on the sideline. And I think you obviously want to take away the run. And if Cleveland's going to move the ball against you, it's going to be because Shedeur Sanders dices you up, and I'll take my chances with that. And so you got to commit to it. Commit extra players, heavy boxes, whatever it is. You can't sit there and just play straight up against the run and see if you can stop them. You need to make this game about Shedeur Sanders and not Quinshon Junkins. So stop the run first. Number 2 is then you got to make Shedeur Sanders' head spin. This is a low tools quarterback that is a slow processor and faces a lot of pressure. He's a bit of a chaos merchant. That ain't going to cut it. And you need to vary the looks. You need to blitz. You need to win one-on-one matchups. You need to make his head spin. There should be no world where Shedeur Sanders has a very efficient, productive game against your defense. And so that comes through varying looks and, winning with your rush up front. And look, I don't think much of the Bills pass rush, but I think less of the Browns, their pass protection, and Shedeur Sanders and his ability to navigate pressure at this point in his career. Then number 3 is you got to hunt the football. This is a Browns team in their last 4 starts under Shedeur Sanders that has multiple giveaways in each of those 4 starts. His turnover-worthy throw rate is through the roof. He holds onto the ball. They've got young players all over the place that are not repped together. You got to be stacking up negative plays and takeaways in this game. So hunt the football. The amount of takeaways, tackles for loss should be a pretty healthy number here for this Bills defense. All right. High expectations for the Bills defense against this offense, but they have a great challenge with this Cleveland Browns defense. I'll tell you all about it and how the Bills can find success on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about this outstanding Cleveland Browns defense that is coordinated by none other than Jim Schwartz. Only 1 season with the Bills. But, boy, that was an awesome season, and I think he very quickly won over so many Bills fans, and I think we're always going to have an appreciation for Jim Schwartz, and he's doing a heck of a job here with this Cleveland defense, despite not having any complimentary football, right? They're terrible on special teams. They're terrible on offense, and this guy's getting a lot of results out of this unit. So Jim Schwartz, 59 years old, third season in Cleveland as their defensive coordinator. Prior to that, 5 years in Philadelphia running that defense. Prior to that, 1 year in Buffalo. Then he was the Lions head coach for a number of years. And then prior to that, of course, a long run as the Titans defensive coordinator. Metrically, they're allowing 23.7 points per game. That's 19th. They're fourth in EPA per play, sixth in EPA per pass, second in EPA per rush. They limit third down conversions to only 38%. That's 11th best in the league. They're 59% allowing touchdowns in the red zone, which is 16th. They will blitz. They have a 30% blitz rate, which is 10th highest in the NFL, and they've been a really good pressure defense all season long. So I'm going to give you the last 4 weeks, but really there's not much difference about the last 4 weeks as there was, any week this season. Number 1 pressure rate team in the league, number 2 in pressure rate over expectation, number 2 in sack rate. This is a team that can rush the passer. And they're going to play a ton of one high middle of the field close coverage. In fact, a 75% rate of one high middle of the field close coverage shells over the last 4 games. That's 12% higher than any other team. And so you're going to get cover 1, you're going to get cover 3, and that is very, very, very similar to how New England played the Bills against the pass last week. So I'd anticipate very, very similar coverage structures, maybe a little bit more blitz. They're going to rush from wider alignments, but those coverage shells are going to be very similar to what Buffalo got last week against New England. And so that's going to challenge the Bills to throw outbreaking patterns and test matchups on the perimeter. Let's talk about this Browns personnel. Of course, at defensive end, it's Myles Garrett. I think he's the best non-quarterback in the NFL. I think there's a case that the 2 best players in the NFL are in this game, Josh Allen and Myles Garrett. I actually think that's factually true. I think the 2 best players in the league are Josh Allen and Myles Garrett. They're both in this game. He's 1.5 sacks away from setting the single season all-time record. He's unbelievable, right? He's a freak. He can win inside, outside. He can beat doubles. He's big. He's long. He's powerful. He's explosive. He's flexible. He doesn't make sense, right? He's a freak. And that's a huge, huge, huge challenge for Dion Dawkins. And, Myles Garrett has had exactly 400 pass rush snaps this year. 315 of those have come as the right edge player. So, there are some chances they move him around. He might get a few reps against Spencer Brown, maybe some interior rush reps. But this is going to come down to Dion Dawkins versus Myles Garrett and whatever help the Bills are willing to give him. Now, look, Myles Garrett's awesome. Tier 1, A-list, special. They have other good pass rushers too. His running mate, they just gave a contract extension to, and Alex Wright, who's extremely toolsy. They have Isaiah McGuire, who's a young player out of Missouri that I really liked at Missouri. They took him in the middle rounds. He's developed into a quality player for them in terms of, really solid run defense, good third pass rusher. And then Cam Thomas, who was a fairly early pick of the Cardinals a few years ago, has found his way over to this defense and has found some production as a 4th defensive end. At D tackle, Mason Graham, they picked him in the top 5 of this draft this past year. D tackle out of Michigan. He's having a really good rookie season as a pass rusher and a run defender. Next to him is not Malik Collins. Malik Collins having a great year. He's injured and out for the year. But they have another good player in Shelby Harris, who's a veteran, not a big dude. He's a guy that, is probably more ideally a sub-package type player, but he can rush, he can penetrate. He's a veteran with some know-how. He's a good player. Then they have a couple of young players. Michael Hall was their top pick a couple of years ago out of Ohio State. He's got athleticism. He's not super big, like 280-something pounds, but can slash a little bit. We'll see if he can go. He's had some injury stuff this week. And then Sam Kamara, 2021 UDFA that's been on the Browns, but really kind of used only sparingly. They're kind of needing him to play a bit more than they probably want to based on some of the injuries they've had at defensive tackle. So this is not a big front. And so if you are you want to see an example of a defense that can stop the run and is not very big, it's this. I mean, Mason Graham's is he 310, maybe 315? Shelby Harris is sub 300 pounds. Michael Hall's in the 280s. Sam Kamara's probably in the 270s. They got some size at end, but they're still defensive ends. And so if you think that a prerequisite to being a good run defense is just having really big people, Well, this along with Houston is not really going to work out for you in that argument. The Bills have Jordan Phillips and Deion Walker. They're very big, but they're not very good at stopping the run. So I think we can learn a lot about, hey, just simply being big doesn't mean that you're a good run defender, right? There's more to it. At linebacker, they've got a heck of a player, probably the defensive rookie of the year in Carson Schwesinger. They picked him in the high second round out of UCLA. I loved him on tape at UCLA. His last season was just A-list tape, and he's translated very quickly to the NFL. I think he's going to be a star if he's not already, and likely the defensive rookie of the year. He's really good. Multifaceted player, can play downhill, can play in space. He's got range. He can cover. He's really good. And then Devin Bush, who was a first-round pick of the Steelers multiple years ago. They traded up to get him, really kind of flamed out, but he's found a home here in Cleveland as the running mate to Carson Schwesinger, and he's got a lot of range and speed. He's got this dense build. He'll smash downhill and take on contact. He's got a nice little role here in Cleveland. You got to watch out for him. They'll play a couple other backers too. Mo Diabate, who's got a lot of length and speed, and then Jerome Baker, a veteran. Of course, you probably remember him from his time with the Miami Dolphins. So it's Schwesinger and Bush, but they'll get into some looks at Diabate and or Baker get on the field. At corner, they traded for Tyson Campbell, and that's looking like a heck of a trade for them. He's been a good corner in the league for a while. Fits well for this style of defense where they're going to play a lot of press man. He's got length. He's got really top-end athleticism. He'll be a good challenge. He's kind of cut from that same cloth as you saw from Christian Gonzalez with the Patriots. Size, length, athleticism, physicality, will tackle, will play and press, has ball skills, a good player. His running mate is Denzel Ward, who traditionally is one of the best corners in the league. He's got a calf deal. I'm not sure if he's going to play. That'd be a big loss for them. He didn't play last week in Chicago, and they turned to Sam Webb, a 2022 UDFA that's bounced around and has not really played a ton of football. And so that's a massive drop-off. If they don't have Denzel Ward, this goes from, an A-list type corner tandem to Tyson Campbell and just a random guy. And so pay attention to that one and see what the availability looks like this week, because Denzel Ward's really good. Sam Webb is highly unproven. In the slot, they have another very unproven player in Myles Hayden. It was a 2024 pick out of South Dakota, and he's gotten worked this year. I'll talk about that in just a moment, but that's their slot player. And then their safety tandem is a really good one. They have Grant Delpit, who's a quality starter. He plays a lot of lower alignments. They play these cover 1, cover 3. So that middle of the field safety is usually Ronnie Hickman, who's a 2023 undrafted free agent out of Ohio State that's become a really good starter for them. And then that unlocks Grant Delpit to be playing in lower alignments and really tapping into his playmaking skills. So I really like that pair of safeties. And, they got a lot of, look, it's a good defense. They have good players. And I think you will go through the Rolodex of Myles Garrett and Mason Graham and Alex Wright and Carson Schwesinger and Tyson Campbell and Denzel Ward and Grant Delpit and Ronnie Hickman. You got a heck of a defensive nucleus with a really good defensive coordinator and Jim Schwartz. And so I like this test for the Bills. I really do, with the Bills offense and seeing a defense like this that I think is going to bring it. And I'm excited to see how the Bills fare against them, because this is a really good unit. I think it hurts their unit that they're not very good on offense, and there's no real complementary football element to it, but this is a defense that can go for sure. So what are my keys for the Bills offense against this defense? Number 1, number 2, and number 3 is protect Josh Allen. Myles Garrett's hunting this sack record. He's at home. You don't think he wants to sack Josh Allen twice in this game and set a record, and for that to be the highlight that everyone sees for the next 100 years? I'm sure he does. I'm thinking he's probably going to sell out and rush the passer. And so this is a big job for Dion Dawkins, but it can't just be Dion Dawkins. I think the world of Dion Dawkins. It can't just be him. Jackson Hawes has to be involved. They have to vary the protection looks. They have to run play action. They have to run at Myles Garrett. They have to execute quick game and screens. Like, you have got to keep his head spinning and not give him any consistent looks. But ultimately, it is about Myles Garrett, but they have other guys too, as I went through. There's like 6, 7 other guys. 6, 7. Look, I walked right into that. I'm sorry. I got a kid. She's 5 years old, and it's just the world I live in. But they got other guys, right? They have other guys that can rush and go. And you can certainly get tunnel vision on Myles Garrett, and you should think a lot about that, but don't sleep on Mason Graham and Shelby Harris and Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, because there's other guys that can get after it, plus they're going to blitz. So your protection plan has to be really good, not only so that you can move the ball and score, but you need to take care of Josh Allen. I can't do the Houston game again. I can't do it. So have the right plan here, Buffalo, please, because your quarterback's health's on the line. Number 2 is don't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself. You're heavy road favorites. You should win this game. The way that you don't win this game is you beat yourself. You have bad penalties. You give away the football. You're not situationally sound. Don't beat yourself. It's okay to punt. This is a game where it's okay to punt. Look, you don't want to. You don't want to give up on a possession, but you should have confidence in your defense to be able to do their part. And there's no reason to force anything. Don't beat yourself. Make the plays you're supposed to make and get out of there with a win. And then number 3, I think in the passing game, this needs to be a Khalil Shakir game. The Bills have a mismatch opportunity with this Myles Hayden that they have in the slot. This dude's got a 24% missed tackle rate. He's a 2024 7th-round pick out of South Dakota. You got to go after him. He's given up a completion percentage against his coverage of 75%, a passer rating over 120. He's conceded 5 touchdowns this year. This is your mismatch opportunity. It's Khalil Shakir against this guy. And so I want to see Khalil Shakir and the quick passing game to be a pretty big part of what the Bills get done here offensively. Special teams real quick. Their kicker is Andre Schmidt, 2023 UDFA out of Syracuse. I know there's probably a lot of Syracuse Orange fans that listen to this podcast. Well, they're going up against a former kicker here. Was a 2023 UDFA, but this is his first year as like a primary kicker in the league. So far, he's 18 of 21 on field goals, 20 of 21 on extra points. Their punter, somebody you know well, Corey Bojorquez. He went to the Packers after he was in Buffalo, and now he's in Cleveland. He's been there for a while, turned into a pretty decent punter. Their return situation has been dicey. Their kick returner right now is Malachi Corley, who was a horrible draft pick by the Jets a few years ago that they quickly moved on from. And he's got an opportunity here to be the kick returner for the Browns. He's not been super productive, but this is a chance for him. Then their punt returner is Gage Lavardin. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I'm sure I did. But he's a rookie out of South Carolina that has 21 punt returns this year and 13 fair catches and 3 muffs. They've had a lot of special teams blunders. I don't think they really have a preferred option at kick returner or punt returner. The Bills need to be sound on special teams and make sure that those special teams woes in Cleveland continue for this game. All right, folks, there you have it. My primer for Bills Browns. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you feel ready for this football game. And I hope that you'll come back for our last conversation. We'll have my final thoughts. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about injuries. And of course, my 5 predictions for Sunday to close out the week. That'll probably drop on Friday afternoon, maybe Saturday morning, but most likely Friday afternoon. All right, folks, thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.